Chapter 1, Lesson 5, Solving Inequalities, still on review from algebra. If you want to write this down, you can, but you do not have to. You just have to remember that when there's no line, it's an open circle, like you see here and here. If it's a line underneath or equal to, that means it's a closed circle. And you have to be careful which way the line is pointing. Greater than means it's going to be pointing to the numbers that are greater. Less than means it's going to be pointing to the numbers that are smaller than that number given. Here we have to write out an inequality statement, so it's very careful. 5 fewer than a number. So far that's saying that I have a number 5, and then taking away a number from that is at least 12. So I know I'm dealing with 12. So if this has to be at least 12, it can be greater than 12 or equal to it. Because this number on the left-hand side has to be at least 12, but it can be any number that's higher. That's why I chose this inequality symbol. Pause the video and attempt the next problem by yourself. So I'm dealing with quotient of a number. And 3, quotient means dividing, is no more than 15. So I'm going to write down 15. It says this number over here on the left-hand side cannot be greater than 15. That means it has to be less than 15. And it can be equal to, because it says no more than. So it can still be 15. When we're dealing with solving our solution for an inequality, we still solve it the same way we would if there was an equal sign. You have to be careful though when you're going to be multiplying or dividing by a negative. So for this first problem, first thing I'm going to do is distribute my negative 3 ends. I'm going to have negative 6x plus 15 plus 1 is greater than or equal to 4. And I can combine my like terms, so I'm going to have plus 16 is greater than or equal to 4. Now I look, what's the math going on here? It's adding. Opposite of adding would be subtracting. I want to get rid of my 16, so I'm going to subtract 16 from both sides. So I'm going to have negative 6x is greater than or equal to negative 12. Now here's where it's a little tricky. I have to divide by negative 6 on both sides of my equation. Since I'm dividing by a negative number, my sign will flip. So this becomes x is less than or equal to a positive 2. And the reason why the sign flips is because when you divide or multiply by a negative number, it's switching the sign of your number. So now when I'm graphing this, when you're graphing this, all I care about is the number that we're dealing with. So in this case, it's 2. I know it has to be a closed circle. The reason why I know it's a closed circle is because there's a line underneath, or equal to. And it says x is less than. So anything that's less than 2. You can always try to test your number. So I know 0 is over here. So if I put 0 into my inequality, is 0 less than or equal to 2? Like, by golly, it is. I want you to pause the video, attempt the next problem by yourself. You should have gotten that x is less than or equal to negative 8. Again, because I divided by a negative number. So negative 8 is where I'm dealing with. It should be a closed dot. And I'm going to be pointing to the left again because the number is less than negative 8. Pause the video to read the problem. So when I'm looking at this, I know 2 things. For one movie plan, I just had to pay $36. For my other movie plan, I had to pay $15 plus $1.50 for every movie I rent. So I'm going to have X be the number of movies that I can rent. And the question says, how many movies must you rent in a month for the first plan to cost less than the second plan? So the first plan must be less than, whoops-a-daisy, less than my second plan. So now it's just solving like normal. Subtract 15 from both sides, and you would get 21 is less than 1.5x. Divide by 1.5, and you would get 14 is going to be less than or equal, or not or equal to, less than x. That means I have to rent at least 14 movies in order for that to be correct. Here I want you to solve and graph. So if I do this first one, I have 10x minus 15 minus 7x is less than or equal to 3x plus 8. Always combine your like terms. So in this case, I would have 3x minus 15 is less than or equal to 3x plus 8. Now I subtract 3x from both sides of my equation. Subtraction keeps the sign the same. So if negative 15 is less than or equal to 8. Since my variables are all gone, I want to see, does this make sense? Is negative 15 less than or equal to 8? Why, by golly, it's true. So that's going to be infinite solutions. Right now, I want you to pause the video and attempt the next problem by yourself. You should have gotten that this was a no solution, because you would end up with negative 2 is greater than 7, and negative 2 is not greater than 7. Here we have two inequalities in the same problem. So you're going to solve each one separately. So if I solve the left-hand side, I would get that 3 is less than x. And then I have an and statement. And if I solve the right-hand side, I would get that x is less than or equal to 6. So when you're graphing this, an and statement is always going to be that's going to be shaded in between my two numbers. When you write your numbers on your number line, you have to be careful that the smaller number is always actually smaller. So at my 3, it's going to have an open circle because there's no line. My 6 will have a closed circle. And anything that is greater than 3 or less than 6 would be on your number line. So it would look like that. And last but not least, the same type of thing from the last problem. You want to solve each equation separately. So on the left-hand side, I'm going to have k is greater than or equal to negative 1, because I would have to subtract 7, or k is going to be less than negative 5. Now here's the problem where you have to be very careful again. Negative 5 is smaller than negative 1, so I have to make sure to write negative 5 on the left-hand side of negative 1. Your number line should make sense. At negative 5, it's an open circle because there's no line. Negative 1, it's a closed circle because there's a line. And with an or statement, you shoot out, because k is either going to be less than negative 5 or greater than or equal to negative 1. So make sure you have all those examples in your notebook. Have a great, grand, wonderful evening.